Hi everyone, welcome to Foodable Smart Kitchen and Bar. My name is Nathi Toro and I'm your plant-based chef. I'm bringing you guys a plant-based cooking demo series in which we're gonna learn how to make appetizers, entrees, and dessert with ingredients you probably already have in your kitchens. First thing we're gonna make today is our hazelnut chocolate tart. And for this, we have 3 different steps. We're gonna first make our milk, then we're making our crust, and finally we're making our filling. It's very decadent, very creamy, super delicious. It's all 100% raw, and only equipment you need is a blender, a food processor, and the freezer. That's it. So we're gonna start. So we're adding 1 cup of hazelnuts to 3 cups of water. Depending on how thick you want them, you can add or lessen the amount of water. So we're gonna go ahead and add 3. It gives us enough for our recipe. And we wanna make sure we blend it up really, really smoothly and high. So we're gonna go ahead and blend it super high. And I think that should be fine. So here's our hazelnut milk. So we're just gonna go ahead and pour it over. And using a spatula, we're gonna go ahead and strain. And with the leftover pulp, you can actually make a lot of raw desserts. So now that we have our milk, we're gonna go ahead and start pulsing our hazelnuts for our crust. So I'm gonna add about a cup of hazelnuts into our food processor. So we're gonna go ahead and pulse. And this is perfect. So this is our final product for our meal with hazelnuts. So now we're gonna go ahead and add 2.5 tablespoons of coconut sugar. About a half. We're gonna add 2 tablespoons of coconut oil that we have already melted, and 1 tablespoon of cacao butter. And this is one of my favorite ingredients. So now we're gonna go ahead and mix. And since we're not baking this and we're actually just pour it into a sheet pan and then into the freezer, this is what's gonna help us harden up our crust. So now that this is done, and we're gonna move on to our chocolate chart. And for this, we're using 3 simple ingredients. 1/2 cup of our cacao powder, 1/4 cup of agave, and we're gonna use 1/2 cup of cacao butter. And we put it in the oven for about 10 minutes at a very low setting. Again, when we're cooking raw, we wanna keep everything under 115 degrees so that we keep all the nutrients and all the vitamins of all of our food. Our sheet pan. Oh, and we're just gonna pour it over. If you don't want to use the cacao butter, maybe you don't have it in your pantry, you can use coconut oil. And it doesn't have to be in any particular shape or form because we're gonna break it up after it's firm. You wanna make sure it's evenly distributed. There we go. This is done, and now it goes into the freezer for about 25 to 30 minutes. And then we're gonna go ahead and get started with the filling for our tart. So for this, again, we're using our blender. So we're using 1/2 cup of hazelnut milk. We're adding maple syrup. This is already pre-measured. This is 1/2 cup. Now we're gonna go ahead and add our 2.5 cups of soaked cashews. And they have been soaking for about 24 hours. The reason why is it makes it easier on the blending process, and also it's easier to digest. So we're gonna go ahead and add those in. We're adding a big pinch of salt. And last thing, we're adding my secret ingredient, which is sunflower lecithin. And what this does is it helps us emulsify our filling. It's about 3/4 of a teaspoon. So we're adding about 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract, and we're blending. now we're bringing the speed down a little bit. I'm gonna open this and start adding my coconut oil. Now we're gonna add our cacao powder. All right, here we go. We have our delicious filling, and this is basically the final result. So we're gonna grab our sheet tray. We have our crust. I haven't added the salt, so I'm gonna go ahead and add a pinch of salt. Now we'll pour it over. We want a thin crust for this, so we wanna make sure it's evenly distributed. I'll go ahead and brush a little bit of the coconut oil. So lightly brushing it. And now our filling. And once it's set, we're gonna use our offset spatula to even it out. But for now, we're gonna pop it in the freezer for about half an hour. Great, so best time of all is our plating and tasting. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab our hazelnut tart and our chocolate chart, and we're gonna plate around with it. They have been in the freezer for about half an hour, and once we cut it, it looks very beautiful. So I'm gonna just trim off the ends, and this you have to plate it fast. Like I said, because it has the coconut oil, once it starts melting, it just becomes very velvety. So we want to make sure we have an even square. And I pre-cut my strawberries, my blackberries, and my blueberries. Now, time to plate. I always like to play around with fresh fruits so that it kind of like offsets the sweetness of the dish. It's a very simple presentation. You don't need much. I mean, you want to make sure that you see all the chocolate. And I'm just gonna dress it up with a little bit of flowers. Make it look beautiful. And last but not least, our chocolate chart. Kind of want to break it apart, different sizes. And it doesn't matter. I like the texture when it has the different ridges on it. And voila. So there you have it, our chocolate tart. And again, this is great for all your guests in the restaurant. It's so rich and chocolatey and velvety, you wouldn't even know this is no animal products in this dish. And once again, this is raw, plant-based, vegan. I'm sure you're gonna enjoy it, and the recipe will be up on the website. Enjoy. Okay, so now we're gonna start with our panna cotta, one of my favorite desserts. And for this, we're gonna use a silicone mold to mount our panna cotta. We're gonna use a couple different ingredients that you probably already have. One that I already spoke about a little bit was the cashews. So we're gonna go ahead and pour our cashews in. We're using young coconut meat, so we did about 1 to 1/2. So 1 cup of cashews to 1/2 cup of coconut meat. Then we're gonna add our agave. So I did a blend of agave and maple syrup. And the hazelnut milk that we used for our previous recipe, we're using it on this one as well. So it will be about 1/2 cup. And agar is a blend of 2 different seaweeds. We have to weigh all of our ingredients. Depending on how much that is, we add 1 cup of water to a saucepan, and we add 0.1% of agar into our mixture. That gives us this gelatin mix. That's what's gonna help the panna cotta to set. So to this, we're gonna add 1/4 of a cup, and that's the plant-based gelatin. So we're gonna go ahead and blend this. And to this, we're also adding coconut oil. So we're bringing it down to a lower setting. Take the top off. And add our coconut oil. Perfect. And that's the consistency we want. So now we're gonna pour it over. Good thing about the silicone molds is that you don't really have to do anything. They're perfect. They clean up really easily and they come up really fast. So now we're gonna put this ones in the freezer for about Again, half an hour, depending on your freezing settings. So lastly, we're gonna make our raspberry sauce, and we're gonna use frozen raspberries, agar-agar, agave, and a little bit of water. I'm gonna do 1 full bag. It's about a pound. We're gonna add half a cup of agave. We're gonna add about 1 to 2 tablespoons of agar, about 1/8 of a cup. And we're gonna blend. All right, doesn't need much blending. Okay, that's the consistency we want. And we're gonna go ahead and strain it, because obviously the raspberries has all those seeds, so we wanna make sure we don't have that in our sauce. Into our squeeze bottle. We're gonna go ahead and get started to set up our panna cotta. So we took our panna cotta out of our mold, and I did a little bit of pre-plating. We also chilled this plate, and we have our raspberry sauce. I made a coconut sugar with some unsweetened coconut flakes that we're gonna just kind of sprinkle around for like that crunchy texture. We're gonna use some fresh berries again, and we're gonna use our chocolate bark. So let's get plating. I'm gonna use only the blackberries and blueberries. And the raspberry sauce should be thick enough to pour on top. Start pouring over the sauce. So what I do with the sauce is to help us also bind. So for now, I'm gonna do just 3. So those are like marking points for the rest of our components. So this is kind of like the soil that I like to call it. It's made with the hazelnut pulp. Our fruits. Pour a little bit on top. To this, I want to add some coconut on top. And our flowers. And you're done with panna cotta. Beautiful dessert. It's dairy-free, guilt-free, delicious, non-refined sugars, and it has a little bit of crunch, freshness with the berries, but it's velvety and super creamy. Thank you guys again for watching. I'm Nathi Toro, your plant-based chef, and stay tuned for more recipes.